I think we're live. Not really sure, as per usual. So I'm going to wait a few seconds. How's everyone doing today? Man, streaming technology is so behind. Oh, now it's working. Okay. Just gotta mute this and then we're good. I think we're live. Hopefully we are. You never know. You never know. Please work. All right, I think we're working. Okay, cool. Hey everyone. How's it going? Hope you're having a good Sunday. I think it's Sunday. You know, when you're not working, every day feels like Saturday or a Sunday, but in like a really bad way. So here I am. I've been vibe coding like crazy for the past 3 or 4 days. It's absolutely insane. I think part of why it's so insane for me is because vibe coding just ticks off the boxes for people with ADHD. And I find myself vibe coding at all hours of the day and night because there are these like little mini dopamine hits that you get whenever something starts to work, and all of a sudden you're just like typing in something and then you hit enter and then you go off to do something else and you come back a little bit later to check up on it. And what I find really interesting is that it fits in really well with how I like to work, but in a really bad way because I have a pretty short attention span at times, and vibe coding is great for that. Like, I don't have to think too hard about something. I just, make some asks and then it does what it needs to do. And then I can like focus on something else. Like, I can break my attention for a little bit. And I think that's bad because it's not helping me train my mind to understand what it is that I'm doing. And this is the first time that I built something in a very long time where I don't really know how it works. I've tried to code before. I learned some JavaScript and Python and try to build a really simple app. And this is several years ago when I built an app that allows me to, well, it was for my portfolio website. And what it does is it requires somebody to sign in with their LinkedIn account in order to look at my portfolio. And what that does for me is it allows me to track who's looking at my portfolio. So I don't have to use a password anymore. I just create a custom link for them, and then when they click into it, they have to log in with their LinkedIn. And I would see, okay, so this person logged in and looked at my portfolio for this long. And it was really useful. And as I built it, it took me like, I would say 2 or 3 months to build. And when I built it, I knew exactly what I was doing. Like I learned so much about APIs and how the LinkedIn single sign-on API worked and how we track people's usage of an app. So all that stuff is really great, but it was also really slow, right? It took me 3 months of like learning and then implementing it. And I learned a lot, but whatever I built, I honestly believe a good developer could have done it in like a day or two. So here we are. This thing I built in the last 3 or 4 days, I think it would have taken me probably 4 or 5 months to build if I had to learn this on my own. Like if I had to learn WebGL and React and 3JS in order to build this, it would easily take me like at least a month or two just to learn the basics. And then it would take me another 2 or 3 months of like nonstop work in order to build something like this, to implement it. And I was able to do this in 3 or 4 days instead. So we're cutting down the time by a lot. But at the same time, I don't know if I learned a whole lot. So Yasmin says, "You're pushing me to redo my portfolio for seventh time this year to incorporate vibe coding." Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I I did not anticipate myself going to vibe coding to do my portfolio. I thought I was gonna do it on Framer. I thought I was gonna use Figma and just build it outright. And by the way, this is not a sponsored post. Like I bought Cursor and I use Magic Patterns, both of these tools to build this. And it's been really interesting to say the least. So what is this tool? This tool, it's not really a tool. It's more of a I would call it retro CRT shader. And this all came from this movie called Aliens Romulus that I really liked. And there are some really great scenes in it where they use old CRT technology. Oof, that's loud. They use old CRT technology to replicate this really amazing look and feel. That's both, remember CRT screens being like rounded because it's like a curved screen. Nowadays, we all use LCDs that are completely flat. And yeah, it just looked really cool. Oops, why did it crash? By the way, I do look at the chat, so if you want to chit chat, ask questions, please do. I will respond. So a lot of this looks really cool. It's like an old style CRT stuff, very pixelated. A lot of CRT artifacts, that shaking, vibration. It's super super cool. Yasmin asks, "Am I hosting my website on Cursor?" Um, I no. So Cursor, I don't think hosts anything. It's all a local environment. So when I build out in Cursor, there's an add-on that allows you to set up a live server, and then when you run the server, just press go live, and it just uses 127.0.0.1, which is basically points to yourself. So it's acting as like a little fake server that you would be able to host websites on. And that was really fun and really cool. So this is a Cursor version that allowed me to do some really interesting stuff. So I started using Cursor first, and I really liked it because it was allowing me to do the pixelation that I was looking for. And I could also upload a pattern. And in this case, I basically created a pattern that's similar to a CRT pixel screen. Where is it? I have so many files saved on my desktop now because I've just been playing with this nonstop without taking a second to clean up stuff. So this is the masking pattern I created in Figma or Photoshop. And it's basically like 20% gray, 50% gray, and then 80% gray. And it's 50, I think it's like 50 by 50 pixels width and height. And I will stretch it and shrink it down so that it applies the CRT look and feel. Let me see if I can zoom in. So it looks like this with the hard mix contrast blending mode put in. And I liked it. It looked really cool. And of course, you can adjust a lot of it, like the saturation, the hue. And I have a CRT line that flows downwards, and it also has a VSync syncing issue, which causes the image to go up and down. So if you remember TV from like the 90s and early 2000s, no, 90s really, if you have a bad signal, the screen would often overlap or roll over like this, and you have a VSync line like this. So I started using this in Cursor. Well, I started building this in Cursor originally, and I thought it was really great. And then I switched over to Magic Patterns because I knew the founders, and we had hosted an event with them back in June in New York City. So their tool is really interesting. And I've been building both side by side for the last few days. And eventually I switched over to Magic Patterns because it was faster. Like I would say Cursor is probably a little bit cheaper in terms of prompting it. The $20 per month with Cursor stretched a lot more than it would with Magic Patterns. But I would say my time is more valuable than $20 per month. And Magic Patterns would give me the prompts would be a lot faster. Like, I would see the results much faster, and I can tweak it and fix bugs that way. So right now, in this is what I built in Magic Patterns, and this is what the UI looks like. I've well, I've resized it quite a bit. Let me see, where's the? There we go. So this is what the app looks like currently, and here's the, I guess, the prompting command line over here. And I open up a second window so I can see it much, so it's much larger. I like to use light mode. And right now it allows me to upload a file, a video file or image, or I can use a webcam. And I've been using webcam just because it's simpler that way. I don't have to select the file because I've been doing this so much lately that it was just easier to press one button. And right off the bat, we can add a pattern overlay. And this is what you're seeing right now over here. That's the pattern mixed in to create the CRT effect. Rick asks, are you working backwards from a vision for your portfolio you've already designed in Figma? Are you seeing how it unfolds as you vibe code? Great question. So I do have a vision for it, and the vision is a retro sci-fi look similar to the Aliens Romulus UI from here. I don't have it designed in Figma yet. I haven't. My Figma skills are pretty bad right now, so I have a vision of how it would look. And when I looked at the way their designs look over here, I realized that it's really about the look and feel. It's not about the content because the UI itself, it's not impressive. It's something that you would see in a B2B software. And I think the best, like I realized this when I saw their Instagram account, the studio that made all the UI for this. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So this is an animation from the movie, and it looks really cool, right? But it's barely legible because of all the special effects they put in. Like, look at that pixelation or depixelation. It's really cool. Here's the original UI, and this is what you and I would design in Figma, for example. And if you look closely at it, it's pretty mediocre. It's not anything special. You and I could design this in probably 30 minutes or less, probably even 10 minutes if you're not rusty like I am. And I don't think it looks like a 70s UI at all. It looks pretty modern. Just it looks like a bad design in many ways. Now, I'm not saying the artists are bad designers. I'm saying that they perfectly encapsulated the shitty designs you would see in corporate, like B2B companies. And the reason why this works so well is that it's broadcasted or it's shown on a CRT monitor like this. And it's all about the visual effects, right? So what I did was I started to break down. So if you go to OnlyFAANGs.design, which is the website that hosts the Notion document, this is where I put all my notes for this project. And I realized that the reason why it looks like an 80s design is because of all these different effects: the blinking, the flickering, the light shifts, the large glowing pixels, etc. So I have to build that first. And that's why I'm vibe designing this right now, basically. And what this does is it lets me load a pattern, and there's a default pattern, which is the original pattern I showed you. And it allows me to choose a blend mode. And this is actually, let me turn off some of the effects so you can see it more clearly. So this is what it looks like by default if you were to, well, let me turn everything off. So here's the webcam view, the the raw video feed by itself. And this looks very modern. It's like a newer camera, and it doesn't look like something like vibe coded, or sorry, it doesn't look like something retro from the 70s or 80s. So the first thing I wanted to do was to add a pattern, which is the mask, the CRT mask that I talked about earlier. And the mask by itself, Yeah, okay, it's well. Let me see. All right, because I turned it off. So I have all these different blend modes that are from Photoshop basically. And what this thing did really well was in Photoshop, you have to select the the blend mode and then you release your mouse button and it'll show you what it is. And here I was able to get it to hover. So I don't have to click on it. I can just like go through it because I'm not really great at Photoshop and I don't remember all the different blend modes. So this was like the best way for me to look through everything. And this is something you can vibe code. This probably would have taken me many, many hours to figure out how to build. And in this case, I did it in like 5 minutes. So the mode I usually use is hard mix, which is a contrast mode. And by itself, it doesn't look that great, right? It's very harsh. But right now, the pixels or the grid is set at 1 by 1. So it's basically very, very small pixels. And I want to increase that. So I go into mosaic grid and I increase it to 6 pixel by 6 pixel. So this is already preset and I just now set it to view. And you can choose the grid color, the width, the height, the thickness of the grid line, and also moire reduction because at a certain size, you start to see the moire pattern for any grid on digital interfaces. You also blur the grid a little bit if you would like. So yeah, this is and also I enable keyboard shortcuts. So a lot of different little things that I've added in. I know right now the color is a little bit harsh, but we can actually adjust it. So typically I bring it down to like 50, 60%. And already we're kind of there for the like 70s or 80s view of like, CRT. And then we have the levels tab. So I basically stole this from Photoshop because I like their UI for it. It's something that a lot of us are familiar with. There's a live histogram that reflects the pixels immediately. And you could also adjust the brightness, contrast, the levels, the output levels, all that is here. And you can also do it in different channels. So I can just change the red channel and say I want more red in it. Or I can remove the red and now it looks more cyan or blue. And then we can go into color and tones, which allows you to adjust the saturation and the hue and also temperature. So very similar to Photoshop's UI. Yasmin asks, as a mid-level average designer, would you recommend I focus more on refining my Figma skills or on learning vibe coding since it seems that's been more popular lately? I would say Figma skills because if you're a mid-level, most of the companies are looking for you to work in Figma still. Now, if you are going to be a founding designer at a company, maybe you can get away with vibe coding stuff, but I would say vibe coding is more of an add-on requirement these days, whereas Figma skills is very much the table stakes. Like you do need to have Figma skills, which I will get into later. I just got really, like hyper focused on this and got carried away for the last few days. I'm happy with the progress I made, but it's I don't think this by itself will get me a job. Thomas says you should create a Zoom plugin, sell it to them. So that's funny because you're right. I am going to vibe code an export button here, and I will probably create a webcam plugin for this so that you can use this in Zoom and also wherever else and OBS. So I'm using OBS right now. I'm pretty sure I can get this to work on OBS in a few days. What else can we do? Oh, and glow. This is really important. So I'm gonna add a glow, and you can add a bunch of different glows if you like. Or right now I'm just gonna start with one. And you increase the opacity, and there's a luminosity threshold. It's basically which pixels will emanate the glow, and I can select that either cells above a certain luminosity or brightness, or cells are above or below this luminosity threshold. And you can sample it by per pixel, which is the smallest little dot that you can see, versus per cell, because right now the cells are 6 by 6 pixels, or 5 by 5 pixels or something. Let me go back up to see. Oh, actually it's 8 by 7. So right now the pixel 8 by 7. Let's get it down to 6 by 6 because I like how that looks. Actually, I like it when it's a little bit taller. So let's do 4 by 8. Oh, maybe that's too much. Let me get this a little bit. Cool. I want to see if I can. I might change the aspect ratio a little bit so that I can see the video on a larger screen at some point. So yeah, let's change the glow color to green. Oh, I hate the color picker. How do I close this? Yeah. I gotta change the color picker window, but I think that's the default for Firefox or something. You could select different blend modes for your glow. And also angle, distance, and blur. Shit, let me go to 100% opacity. Let me change it to red so that you can definitely see it. Huh. I'm totally not seeing this. Oh, there we go. So I can either do the dark areas or the bright areas. That'll really wash it out. And we give it a little bit of blur. And maybe bring it down a little bit. So yeah, punch a really cool fun effect. And actually, I don't really like this. All right, let me see why I can't get it to choose the above threshold. So basically, I want like all the bright areas to show up. And I wonder if it's because I mess with channels. I'll reset the channel here. Reset this channel. And then, oh, there we go. So the channels were interfering with that. So there was no luminous pixels that would activate the glow in this case. And usually I like to create some interesting colors through here. And then you can adjust the opacity. So for pixel sample, hard light. Oh, that might also be why. Yeah, that was the main reason. So you do distance, how far away, the angle of this. And what this is useful for is when you're creating a CRT view with older CRT monitors, if you have bright text over dark backgrounds, it would reflect in the CRT glass and create this very soft glow, which is not desirable for image quality, but it's definitely an artifact of the CRT time and era. And I want to recreate that. Let's do this angle. And then let's bring that down a little bit. Give this a little bit of a blur. You can also add noise if you like, just to the glow. And you can adjust the noise speed as well. And you can duplicate this glow as well. And you can select different colors. And I can say, I want this to be below threshold. So you're basically doing the opposite. Okay, so I'm going to close this. And then some of the fun stuff like pixel artifacts. What this does is it creates random pixelation. It's not my favorite so far. I need to really tone this down a little bit so that it's not so obviously an artifact that I put in artificially. If this were to work, it has to look really natural, as in this is an issue with the CRT monitor or an issue with their signal interference. You can adjust all these different things like duration, pixel scales. I think one mistake I made is that the sampling for this is not based off the layer is this is below the glow layer. So it's not sampling the glow, it's sampling the base video below it. And that's why the pixels are different colors and I have to reorder that. So that's definitely a bug. And then we have VSync tears, which is huh. Oh, it broke again. So originally what it did was it would split the screen at random intervals and then move the bottom half of the bottom portion of the screen to the right by a set number of pixels, which was randomized. And the VSync tears would allow us to do that. So I gotta fix that at some point. What's funny with vibe coding is that you every time you add a feature, you run the risk of breaking down other features. And I have so many features at this point that I'm basically playing whack-a-mole. I would say probably 20% of my time is just spent on feature maintenance with previous features as opposed to adding new features. So screen vibration is the look I wanted to go for. It gets pretty obvious when you have a grid outline because you start seeing more array patterns. But without the grid, I do like that effect. Basically, the screen acts like a wave and it starts to shake a lot. You also change the color shifts, like RGB colors. This might be a little bit too intense. And I have a frequency slider here. So how many shifts per every 10 seconds? Lowest is 1. So every 10 seconds, you'll see a vibration at random intervals. And yeah, it's cool. I think this might be a little bit overboard. Then you have static white noise, which, emulates the typical bad signal quality of space communication. And then you have CRT effects, which curves everything along the screen. So this is like the most extreme one. And it distorts everything, not just the original video image, but all the effects on top of it as well. Around the corners. You can also add some vignette, so that, CRT monitors typically darkens. Oh, that reminds me, I do want to blur the edges at some point. Oh, and RGB, chromatic aberrations, that shifts. So lots of features. We have a question from YouTube. HX Avi 7531 asks, I recently came across an interviewer recently asked me if I was familiar with using V0 cursor or lovable for design prototyping. It's not now an expectation for mid-level designers. Yes and no. It depends on your manager, depends on the team. What I'm seeing is that there are often more top-down executive pressure put on the design team to implement AI. And it's kind of weird because, you know, I don't think AI is fully ready for mass scale implementation. I think there's some really cool aspects to it. And if you get really good at it, you can certainly make stuff that you wouldn't be able to make without AI. Like whatever this thing I just made, it would have taken me at least 3 or 4 months to make it if I had to teach myself how to code. And even if I knew how to code to begin with, I bet this would still take me probably 2 weeks minimum to make it to get to this point. And I was able to vibe code the bulk of this. Like this stuff took me literally a day to put together in Cursor. And obviously it's not perfect. Like look at this. It just cuts it off on the side over here. But the effects are, I would say, 70 to 80% there. So that's pretty impressive. And I think that's the part that people are really interested in. Now, can I use this to sell this product? Is this ready to be delivered and scaled up to be used by everyone? No, hell no. But it's a pretty cool demo for one or two, for like one person to like put together, right? Now, is that a hiring requirement? I think it's important, but it's not the end all be all. Like if you are not good at doing visual design and you're not good at using Figma, but you're really good at doing this, you're probably not going to get the job. If you're really, really good at Figma and visual design and the other basics of product and UX design, and you just are completely new to this and you don't know how to vibe code at all, you still probably will get the job because you'll beat out other people who are not as skilled in terms of design work as you are. And again, like this is pretty easy to pick up. Like this took me literally a few hours to make something work, and I'm not an expert in this at all. Like I had to just I just came in and started trying it out, and maybe I put it like I watched one quick video because when I first loaded up Cursor, I was like, this interface is confusing. Where do I vibe prompt, stuff, and I had to see on the video. Oh, it's over here. That's how you do it. And yeah, it took me a few hours. So it's not like a hard skill requirement, but I do see some managers and some hiring managers ask for it because they're getting pressure from their leadership to implement AI in their design processes. And it's again, a really weird top down pressure that doesn't make a ton of sense, but that's just how it is right now in design hiring for whatever reason. There are a few companies that do have high-end rubrics around AI usage. The main one I can think of is Zapier. Higher AI rubric. I don't know if I can find it. Oh, there we go. So with hiring rubrics, the way they work is typically when you're interviewing a designer or anyone, like a developer, PM, whatever, the interviewer is filling in, is measuring you based on some requirements, like how well do you work with others, your technical skills, your ability to strategize, etc. Whatever is important for this role, right? And you would get graded from a scale of 1 to 5, for example. And 5 would be like must hire. This person is an expert in this area. And 1 is this person's terrible. Do not hire, right? And all of a sudden, companies are putting together AI fluency rubrics now. And Zapier put this together. I don't look. I think partially this is again a reaction from the top down pressure from leadership to implement something like this. And I also think this is a marketing tool to basically tell people Zapier is where you want to be if you're an AI forward person, and you should definitely come work here because we're at the cutting edge, right? I don't believe that a ton of people are going to score transformative, rethinking strategy and delivering new value using AI because they have a scale 1 to 4, right? So unacceptable, resistant to AI tools, and skeptical of their value. And look, I would say I belong here. I'm very skeptical of AI tooling, but at the same time, I can see how to use it would provide value, right? But I also think that there are some issues here that we should, that's a separate conversation altogether. But again, I think with Zapier, they're coming out with this fluency rubric, and we should think about it this way to a certain extent. But I would say this is just one dimension of many when it comes to design hiring. I would say it's like the icing on the cake. Like if you're solid at everything else, then yeah, let's look into your vibe coding skills, your AI design skills. But if you are lacking in strategy and design craft and design skills, then you're probably not going to land a job by being really good at AI designing, whereas your regular design skills are like mediocre, right? So, real problems that spark real insight. Product: how is AI impacting software as a service? What kind of question is that? Tell us about a time you use AI in a product feature. What changed? Like, this is the part where you kind of lose me a bit because AI has been around for how long? A few years at this point. And I would say the first half of it, maybe more, AI really wasn't that useful. Like it was doing some cool stuff with ChatGPT. You can like talk to it, but it's not like where we are today, where you can vibe code stuff with cursor and magic patterns. And putting this question in an interview, it just seems a little unfair. It's like asking for 20 years of experience in using Figma, and you're like, Figma hasn't been around for 20 years. What the hell? So anyway, that's what I've been thinking. Back to our regular programming. VSync lines. So they're basically vertical sync issues with CRTs. I can adjust the intensity, the opacity, the height of the sync line, and also give it a hard edge on one side or both sides. So I like this one a lot because, well, I like the implementation that I put together for this. You also blur it. And you also add additional lines. Yeah, this looks like a transmission that has gone haywire a bit. Let's increase speed. Yeah, we're getting there. There's some cool effects. And also add a gradient. It doesn't work that well right now because it only affects one of the VSync lines, not all four of them. But yeah, I'm actually okay with that. Like this does not need to be perfect. It needs to have some kind of variance in order to make it look cool. And you can also do pixel smudging. So a bunch of different little features here. And then you have vertical roll at the bottom. Oh, I forgot the blend mode. So I can make this blend differently. And then vertical roll basically allows you to push because when you have vertical sync issues with the signal, sometimes the image will go upwards by just like rotate upwards a little bit. So this is one effect. And you can, of course, go into it and play with a bunch of different sliders to get something entirely different. Yeah, it'll be cool on Zoom. I don't know. I think this is cool to look at for like first 3 seconds, and then we'll turn it off because it will probably drive whoever is on the call with me insane, having to look at me through this weird filter. Let me see what else can I do with it. I'm gonna play with it a little bit before I move on to vibe coding. All right, let's do a reset. And then collapse all. Turn off some of the effects. I just do hide all. Okay, so we're back to the beginning. Oh, one really cool feature that I've been working on, and it's not perfect yet. Well, it's very far from being perfect, is the duplicate video layer. And the reason why I want to do this is not to duplicate the video layer, but to create um, a movement blur from lateral sync issues. Is it lateral? I forgot the exact term for it, but oh god, how do I just point to ChatGPT? What is the name for lateral syncing blur in CRT monitors? So I guess it's ghosting. CRT motion smear ghosting. Yeah, I guess that's some of it, but I'm actually looking for something really specific. So it's not ghosting. It's not this either. Oh, interlaced. That's it. Okay, so I wanted to recreate this very. Let me see. Oh yeah, you can see it on his hands and his legs. See the squiggly lines that happens whenever he's moving. Yeah, I want to recreate that, and it was a complete bitch to do because I couldn't figure out how to verbalize this in a prompt that would work, and it's not able to recognize moving objects. So I would say whenever the pixels move really quickly, create this lateral interlaced blur. And it wouldn't work because all the pixels are constantly changing in value. And this really only happens whenever an object moves, like say my head moves really quickly or like my hand moves. And WebGL, or at least whatever I'm thinking of how to code this, doesn't like isn't able to pick up what the object is. It's only able to look at it on a pixel level. So even though like all these things are not really changing right now, they are changing in terms of value minutely, and that would just kind of throw a wrench into things. So the solution I came up with was to watch this tutorial, and basically what this guy did here was to he created a duplicate video layer on top with scan lines, and then use a certain blend mode, and then he offset this video by a few milliseconds so that there was a trailing line, and it's really clever the way he came up with this. See how like because the interlaced lines of the video lag behind by a few milliseconds, it would create those squiggly line effect. So this actually took a long time to put together. And what I did here was to basically create another layer of the same video, but I will lag it behind by a little bit. So right now you can't see it, but there are two videos on top of each other. And if I turn on 50% opacity, it's still the same, right? Because the videos are playing concurrently. And what I did here was to delay this by using a slider to delay it by a certain amount of milliseconds. So now when I move, the other video is delayed. And it goes all the way down to 2 seconds. So there's a 2 second delay. But really, we don't need that much. I think just probably even under 70 milliseconds is too much. Maybe a little bit more. right? 40. There we go. Now we get this nice motion blur from it, right? So now we have another pattern on top. And I'm gonna load this. I'm gonna load the lines pattern. Huh. Still working on this. So I need to decouple the grid unit from the lines itself. But theoretically, theoretically, I should be able to set the right blend mode to cause a lateral line squiggle whenever there's a lot of motion. It's almost there. I think it's one of the modes here. And then after I decouple it, it's going to be really obvious and I can create that squiggly line. It's kind of it's hilarious that I'm putting in so much effort, like many hours of effort to recreate all the imperfections of CRT monitors on LCD. So right now it's a little bit blocky because it's not decoupled from the mosaic grid units. But once that is done, I think I should be able to recreate that. And one thing I like to test is I like to look up sci-fi space transmissions. So one of my favorite is Interstellar transmission. This is a really famous scene from the movie, which is very heartbreaking. And I don't know if if you haven't watched the movie, please watch it. I don't want to spoil too much. Let me see, where is it? So this is Interstellar and the way they put their transmissions there. And what I wanted to do was to recreate that. So how do we do that? Collapse all, reset, hide, and let's see. How would we recreate that? Oh yeah, I need to go back to the prompts. No, actually, I don't need to do that. So let's say I'm using this video. All right, let's line it up. Let's keep that pattern overlay and mosaic grid. I think we can do a 6, maybe a pin light. Huh. Just get a CRT look. I know you don't really see it on here because I think they're using LCDs since this movie is made recently as opposed to from the 70s or 80s, but I think we can get a lot of the look and feel right. Contrast is pretty high. And then we go into colors and tones. And I think we desaturate it to a certain extent. There's some purple in that and also a lot of blues and greens. Probably more greens, probably not a lot. Well, there's some purple in the skin. A little bit of green. It's hard to do because their background is so dark in this, and my background's pretty light, which is an issue. And then I think I need to create some of the glows on the face, which is hard to do because the background. It's gonna really affect the background. Let me just pull in the color so that I know what I'm looking at. I am not great at colors, but it looks something like this. And then, no, not same distance. And I'm going to add another glow. And this one could be a lot softer. Let's say distance, not really. Definitely a blur. A little bit of noise to tone it down. It's getting closer. No, should be above the threshold. Pixel effects. Oh, that interlacing is the hard part. This is the reason why I wanted to add interlacing. And it's also vertical interlacing, which is interesting because most of the time when you see interlacing, it's going to be horizontal, at least in my experience. So I wonder why they chose that as an effect. Yeah, this is a little too much. Yeah, I might turn this off. I need to work on this a little bit more or tune it a little bit more so that it looks a lot more natural. And this just isn't working anymore, unfortunately. But I'll get back to that. No, they don't really have that. No, they didn't really have noise either. And they also didn't really have CRT effects because I think they use LCDs. So here's the step that I'm in with trying to get it to interstellar. If I can just get the interlacing right, I think it'd be pretty close. If I have a dark background and the light shining in my face, I can get this a lot closer as well. Let me load another video because I do have another video at night that could potentially work. No, still background still too bright. Yeah, this one's a hard one. Okay, I think this one has potential. I just need to remix some of the colors. We delete the glows and then just start fresh. And also the temperature. Wow, this is really red. But that's the cool part. I do like how random some of this stuff could look at times. Yeah, I think we're getting pretty close to the color in the background. Yeah, there we go. And then I have to add a glow to the face or to the light areas. And I don't think it's going to be yellow necessarily, but I just want to see where the glow is going. Okay, I think we're getting closer. And RGB combined. What's the blend mode? Normal? Yeah, also there's no signs of pixelation or grid in this. So maybe I need to disable that. And then bring it down to, yeah, it just doesn't look as good by itself. I mean, mine is a little bit way too green right now without the grid, but yeah, I guess it's something like that. But I do like seeing the grid. Yeah, so here we are. Okay, so let's do some vibe coding with this because I do want to add some of the effects to this. Hmm. What do I want to add? Oh, I know. I know what I want to do. I want to start adding presets because this is getting onerous where each time I want to recreate this, I have to go into sliders and add new presets to each of these, which is a pain in the ass. So let's do this. At the top, I want at the top of the UI, I want to set up presets that I can reuse later on. No, actually not yet because so Magic Patterns does not have a back end. It's a purely front end vibe coding tool, which means there is no God, what's that term? Data is not being saved across the board. Now I have a few options. I can either save it as local files and then that'll just populate directly in there. But I still need to create the method by which you save those files each time. So I want to set up um, add button hide at the top. Add a button to save the preset for every. Oh, save the settings for the current for all the filters and panels so that I can reuse this later on. I will then, okay, I had to really think this through. So I can either think about this silently or I can ask Magic Patterns to think this through with me. So right now there's something called agent mode. And what agent mode does, which is similar to what Cursor has, is you can have conversations with Magic Patterns or with the LLM. In this case, it will be Claude, and have it think through things with you. So the thing I want to do is I don't want to manually adjust the settings each time. I want to save the settings, but we have limitations where Magic Patterns does not have a backend. So how do I get this data to save across the board each time I reopen, reset, or close the server or close this app? How would it work? And I can either save as local files or I can bake it in to Magic Patterns or into this app so that I can just select it right off the bat. Add a button to save the settings for all the filters and panels so that I can copy and paste. So is it going to be text? Yeah, Adam says Superbase. Yeah, you could set up Superbase with it, but that seems like a lot of work right now. And I'm reluctant to go that route just yet because I know that I will have to reset this. Or sorry, I know I have to I'm gonna make a lot of changes. I have to edit this a lot. I have to add new features, remove certain features, etc. So the issue with Superbase in my mind is when you rely on a database to collect all this information, the data you're collecting and saving needs to be consistent across the board. So when you start to add new features or change the existing feature, the presets are no longer going to work or they're going to break in some way. And therefore, early on, I should just bake it in, especially because I don't need people to save their own. Like, I want to be the only person saving presets to this. I don't want other users. Again, there are no other users, it's just me this far. So I just need to save that and bake it in. So every time I, you know, do some cool settings, I want to save it and then I'll just copy and paste it back in. So save settings for our filter and panel in text format so that I can copy and paste it back into Magic. All right, so JSON. So I can either do text format or JSON. Is there a difference? So I can copy and paste it back into Magic Patterns and save it as a preset that I can quickly select without having to toggle through all the settings sliders. Let me know if you have a better idea. This is so weird because I'm not used to talking to AI. Like prior to agent mode, my instructions to Magic Patterns was very straightforward. It was just add a slider for opacity, and that was it. But as this app grew and became bigger and bigger, so we're at version 44 right now. What this is now covering is there's actually a previous fork of around 270 updates. And that reached the upper limit, which is like 35 or 38 megabytes for an app. And that crashed it. So I had to fork it to get to here. So we're at version 44. If you have a better idea, um, I'm not sure if it's better for this to be in JSON or text format. Also, it's I will be adding and changing features, filter features. So this has to be adaptable and God, what's that term for is able to use older versions? My brain's not the best right now. I haven't slept very well. Backward compatibility and be backward. So now with agent mode and magic patterns, I'm conversing a little bit more. I'm asking for feedback and for ideas. And I'm also hoping that it asks me and ask me clarification questions, which has been kind of helpful for some of the more complex features I wanted to add. Okay, that's not bad. So it's saying, yeah, backward compatibility. Okay, so it's doing that now. It's gonna use JSON. Good call, Adam. So what's really crazy is that Magic Patterns is surprisingly fast. I've noticed it's probably 30 to 50% faster than Cursor. So I'm able to do a little bit more during this time. The unfortunate trade-off is that it costs more. So I'll run out of credits sooner on Magic Patterns than on Cursor. However, it does do a good enough job where it's worth it. Like I would rather have that trade-off. Like I'm willing to pay more for faster feedback and iterations. So I'm gonna keep going and keep going. How's everyone doing today? So I got into this weird habit lately where I fall asleep at like 9 p.m. on the couch and I wake up at 3 a.m. and I can't fall asleep again. So starting from 3 or 4 a.m., I would start vibe coding stuff. And vibe coding stuff is it's like a weird habit of mine now. It doesn't require that much brain power. Like I don't have to think too hard about it. I just like do stuff now. Whereas when I used to design stuff, I used to think things through really carefully and deeply so that whatever we execute on was the best solution. And with this process, I'm not doing that anymore. Like I'm creating some pretty bad patterns here, but I am getting something that works pretty well right off the bat. So I can prove that, okay, first of all, this thing works and it doesn't crash my browser. So WebGL works and effects are pretty close to what I want to accomplish. So altogether, this is great. I can do it. And then when I look at the UI, this is acceptable. I think it's similar to what you might see in some B2B software. Would I put this in a portfolio piece in the current state? Not really. I think this is a cool middle of the step iteration that you can show in your case studies to show like, oh, this is you proved the concept and here's the first iteration. But I wouldn't say this is a good UI. Like I wouldn't expect anyone to like a hiring manager, recruiter to look at this and be like, okay, I'm going to hire this person. This person's a good designer. So where is it? Okay, so now we have save presets. Huh. All right. So let me try this out real quick. And I'm going to do some really extreme stuff just so that I know this thing is working. Oh, this is too extreme. And let's do levels like this. All right, let's change the color and tone. I think that's going to be really obvious when something's working or not. And then we add a glow. All right, so something black and white with some yellow, and then turn off vertical sync, turn on V-sync lines because I like that. Turn down the speed. Oh, maybe we don't get colors now because it's black and white. Oh yeah, this is the other issue that I'm facing right now, in that the layers are stacked in a certain way that I'm not sure I'd like that much. And this is where this tool is getting very complex. So here are the layers. Basically, you have the grid on the very top, you have the video on the very bottom, and then the color and tone adjustments are right under the grid, which means I have I don't have full control over everything, but everything is consistent. So maybe I need to move this underneath to, ooh, do I do pattern overlay, or maybe over here? So I need to prompt that in a bit. But anyway, so this is a good start. Let's save this preset, and then we reset everything and we load it. Okay, so it's now working. All right, that was pretty fast. That took me like less than 10 minutes to put together. Most of it was just waiting. Okay, now create a preset library at the very top that I can select presets from. Provide a quick, right, a thumbnail of the preset, apply to the current video feed so I can see what it looks like. Make this a pop, make this a moto. It takes up most of the screen. Huh. Ask clarifying questions and give me suggestions on how to improve this. Include in the library this preset, this first set below. Call it Yellow Rat Bastard. What is Yellow Rat Bastard anyway? Because I've seen that somewhere. Unique retail store in New York now offers curated selection urban streetwear. Call it, call this preset. All right. Now it's thinking. To be honest, I'm not super sure I love how AI has made me think differently with design. There's some good parts of it, but there are also some issues that I'm running into, especially around how do I say this? I think AI is making me more efficient, but I worry that it's changing the way I think with detrimental long-term consequences, because I'm no longer planning as much. I'm not really thinking of the edge cases. I'm just doing stuff. And while the stuff that I'm doing seems to lead to some interesting results, there's a lot of mindless iterations that happen as opposed to purposeful strategic builds that I used to do. I don't know how that's I haven't seen the end results yet, so I don't know, but yeah. Anyway, so agent mode before it even implements any of this starts to ask me clarifying questions. Oh, this is a great question. So thumbnail should be generated in real time using whatever video or webcam feed is live at the time. Apply the preset settings to the current video webcam feed. So I can immediately see how it looks. The user cannot do any of these things. Can the user edit the presets? Not yet. Later on, they will be able to, but as of right now, I don't need them to be able to do that. It's just me who's going to be adding it through magic patterns. Presets should not be categorized yet. Just order them in a card library format. Show a live preview on the video. No. I want the preset oh, maybe I want to do both. I want the preset thumbnail to show to be live base to be live, and when you hover over it to be live for it, it would expand to show the video in a larger size with the preset applied. Okay, so your suggestions, they're good. Auto-generate thumbnails. Again, I don't want you to auto-generate thumbnails when saving the preset because there is no way to save presets for the user. Proceed, but ask more questions as needed. Okay, so this is cool. Like it's kind of helping me think through these things and it's clarifying it. So my original prompt was fairly simple. Pretty straightforward, but lacking in detail because I have in my head an idea of what this will look like. And this is like one short paragraph, 2 or 3 sentences. And it asked me mostly the right questions. All right, so it didn't do it yet. It's going to ask me more questions. Perfect. To that frame for each thumbnail. Huh. Should I do one or the other? Let's do live thumbnail. Live thumbnail rendering. Why not? It's fine. It's probably gonna kill most people's browsers. Should when hovering, should the expanded preview overlay on top of other thumbnails? Push other thumbnails aside, open center modal overlay. Over. So option one, overlay on top. Preset application, when you click a preset thumbnail, should it apply the preset and close the modal? Option one, apply and close the modal. Modal trigger, should the preset library open via a new button in the header? Yeah, open via a new button in the header. I know this is getting really crowded, but right now I don't care. I'm more thinking about the functionalities and features as opposed to getting the UI right. I don't know if this is the right way to design anything, but I have a lot of ideas for the features, and they're definitely ballooning. They're getting quite convoluted and quite large, but it's enable me to make presets that I quite like that I want to share with other people. So I'm gonna keep doing that until I get to a point where I feel like, you know, let's draw the cutoff line and then design a UI. Should I build a few more? Sure. Do your best to create new to create. I don't think they're gonna do a good job with this. Sure, do your best to create only one other preset called vintage VHS. Get it as close to a 90s era VHS tape look and feel. Okay. I'm not even gonna read the rest. So I'm gonna do this and see what it comes out with. Okay. This might take a while. This is the big ask, especially with the live previews. I'm not sure if that's gonna work out, but it's one of those things where you're like, why not? You're vibe coding it, so you don't have to actually implement something this complex. So let's try it out, see if it works well in terms of usability. And do I find it useful and delightful? And then I'll keep it. But if it's not how I imagine it to be, then I can remove it pretty quickly. Usually I'm more talkative, but just really tired. I'm operating on like 4 or 5 hours of sleep. Yeah, this thing's quite addictive. I need to really think about how I'm using AI vibe coding tools because I can easily just sink multiple hours into this without even thinking or realizing it. Well, you know what? In the meantime, I'm going to play with some of the presets. I know it's going to disappear the second this loads, but what else am I going to do while I'm waiting? Let's see. We reset this again. Hide everything. Let's start with 0. Mosaic grid. I like 6 as a number. Oh crap, did it break again? Oh, there we go. Alright, change to, go to webcam. Oh, this actually works. Vintage VHS is not the best nor the worst. I think this is the default. Oh no, it is. It's not the default. It's slightly changed from the default. I'm surprised that it was able to do that. Huh. Okay, what's good about this and what's not good about this? All right, so it's a really low resolution. Not really able to see a whole lot. But this works. I don't know why there's a gray line on top. Preset library, so okay, cool. All right, this is cool. There's a gray line that hovers on the top right of the preset window. It seems to be fixed to the mouse cursor and moves with it, albeit it's far away from it. I've attached the screenshot of how this looks. Can we remove the gray line? So this is really cool. I wonder if I can play with this while I make updates. Huh. Okay, so it actually knows what I'm talking about. Hopefully that'll work. I don't I didn't think the AI would be able to understand or glean from the screenshot itself what I'm asking for it to do. But it seems to understand it. I didn't expect that. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is probably create a bunch of cool presets for this and then save that so that people can try it out. Because otherwise, this thing is way too complex over here. Like, I like using this, I like doing all this stuff. But if you're using this app for the first time, this might be overwhelming. Oh yeah, I fixed it. Cool. Let's see. Yeah, this is kind of like vintage VHS. I think it's more static. I would adjust this a little bit more. Something like this. And the scan lines would be not as frequent, but something like this. And maybe one line, less intense. Maybe two lines. Yeah, I don't know if I want the vertical roll, but yeah, I like this. Should I change the color as well since it's VHS? I don't know what VHS looks like anymore. So this is the other thing, like VHS actually looks quite good if you remember watching it back in the 90s. But nowadays when we look at VHS, the film itself has degraded so much that it looks like shit. And but that's people's understanding or interpretation of VHS. This is great. All right, how would I emulate that? God, so shitty looking, but it looks great. I actually really like it. Uh, Probably less contrast in general. Oh, I want to change the yellows, but I'm keeping that in the background so I can make some adjustments accordingly. The darks look really, really bad. Maybe I can increase the pixel a little bit and the pattern overlay. This is gonna be really challenging. So it's not the grid that's the issue. Okay, I need to increase the size. Otherwise it doesn't look right. And okay, so I got its own window. I wish I could blur a little bit more. This is way too sharp compared to VHS. Like the midtones are just mush here. I don't think VHS looked this bad when I was younger. Why does it look so different than what I imagined, what I remember it to be? Okay. I think they apply some kind of filtering or smoothing to this. It's just so blurry. I might need to add a blur filter to this. I didn't think I would need it, but here we are. Wait. Oh, I'm in a red channel. That's why. It's very yellow now. But there is like a weird color to VHS. Oh, it's hard to recreate that. I kind of need some source videos. I think the biggest issue is that there is very little pixelation to this. It's all just really blurry, and I don't have a blur filter in here yet for some reason. Why don't I have that? I'm trying to remember. Oh yeah, blur is really hard to activate for WebGL for some reason. I had it and I stripped it out because it just kept causing issues. But I do want to get this right. But I have to go soon. I've been at this for over an hour at this point. It's not the noise. It's not screen. Maybe some of it is the noise. That can help. And then I could do monochromatic and then keep it less intense and larger pixels. And then there's certainly the chromatic aberration, like the white lines here with contrast. Where is that? I think that's under. Yeah, I can do some RGB shifts. What else can I do to make this look closer? Team Rocket. This brings me back. Some of these are just from the 90s. I wonder how I can get this low quality look to it. It's certainly something to do with the colors. Go back to here. Give it that really muddy look. Maybe that glow is not, well, there's no glow actually. That's too much. All right, let me remove the glow and then change the highlights. And then adjust saturation. Oh God, how do I get this to that color? Really, I'm just working off my skin tone, so that's not really a great example. Shouldn't be so orange. Maybe this is as close as I can get for now until I add some kind of a blur feature to it. All right, I'm going to keep working on this. Thank you everybody for joining and watching this live stream. I will be more energetic next time and do more. So see you all around.